Under the rules for me,
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from February 21st. Entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes from the last day meeting.
Second by Paul. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any minutes are approved. In terms of agenda, I think we have some more students joining us for discussion of curriculum. So if it's all right, I think we'll start with the Pbis. Everybody says it a different way, so I'll get it right by the time, we're...
Well, I don't guarantee, that's just the way I say it. So.
All right, perfect.
Hello, I'm Anita Gerling and I'm principal here at Kirkwood. Welcome. We have two teachers who were able to go through the training with us this summer. Kingsley went with us as well. Renee Pearson is first grade teacher here, and Jessica Harper, fifth grade teacher, and they're going to take it away.
All right. So we are going to present about Pbis, which is an initiative that we are undertaking this year at Kirkwood. And so we're going to run through things quick so we can have some questions and whatnot at the end. So first of all, what is Pbis? It's designed to increase school-wide learning and performance. The mission of Pbis is to ensure that all students will succeed in rigorous curriculum, will increase their enrollment in four-year colleges, will become educated and responsible participants and leaders in a democratic society. A little bit of history about Pbis. It began with one high school and 32 students in 1980, and it now impacts more than 700,000 students in 5,700 elementary schools, secondary schools, and higher education campuses. The Pbis College Readiness System spans elementary through higher education. So this year at Kirkwood, we are initiating Pbis Elementary. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means for us here. So just a little bit about who Pbis impacts. It really impacts every scholar every day. So just every kid in the Pbis Elementary system has access to all of the teachings of Pbis and the components of it. Pbis Elementary is best practices that are embedded throughout the day through all subject areas. It's explicit teaching of organization and responsibility. It's really a philosophy on learning, so we take on a lot of initiatives here. It feels like we take on more and more every year. And the difference between an initiative like a curriculum or anything like that is that this is really a mindset shift for teachers and also students and families on learning and engaging with learning. So it's for all students. How does it help students? It develops them as readers and writers, develops deep content knowledge. It's to know content-specific strategies for reading, writing, thinking, and talking. And it's to develop habits, skills, and behaviors in which to use knowledge and skills. So there's 4 different essentials, and if you want to pass those out right now, that is Pbis Elementary encompasses. Instruction, culture, leadership, and systems. And as our site team this year developed different goals that go along with, oh, you already have handouts, that's so great. Nicer ones than I gave you. You do. So this, no, you can hear it. So these 4 different areas are what we've really focused our energies on as our Pbis site team this year. So we've developed goals to fit in with each of the 4 different components. So instruction, they use the Wicker strategy for the foundation of instruction in Pbis elementary classrooms, and that's, again, kind of a mindset thing, and it's also just a tool that you can use to overlay any curriculum that you're using. So the Wicker strategies can be used in our math, in our reading, in our social studies, science, health, everything. Culture is a big part of what we've taken on this year at Kirkwood. We incorporate a culture of rigorous, relevant, differentiated opportunities for all students in an environment that promotes college readiness. And so one of the questions that I had going into the training was, well, what if every child doesn't go to college? Is that a mandatory thing? You know, like what if they choose vocational or they choose a career right away? And the idea behind the college readiness idea is that whatever the child chooses to do is totally fine. We just want them to get to a point where when they reach that decision-making point, they have every door open to them. They don't feel like any door is shut because they didn't have the privileges to have access to that in high school or in elementary on up through high school. So that's kind of that college readiness piece. We want to promote that every child can go to college if they choose to. Leadership, so the Avid Elementary leadership supports, guides, and facilitates the implementation. So this is our leadership team. And then systems is kind of the above our leadership team, just making sure that we're aligning those systems through the use of accountability, articulation, assessment, calibration, ensuring the fidelity of the program. So that's where we have Kingsley involved, and Anita's involved, and our site team is involved with that piece of it. So you can go through the handout with the goals that we've worked on this year at Kirkwood. I really want to spend, we don't have a ton of time, and I don't want to belabor reading all of them. So we have different goals in each area that we've either already accomplished this year or we're still working on accomplishing. And there's a picture slideshow that'll show you more of kind of the actual meat of what we've been doing with pictures of kids and teachers a little bit later. So you can zip through that. Instruction, culture, systems, and leadership. And then Avid has 4 components that we've worked on with classroom teachers. So those slides were kind of more for our leadership team. The essentials were, and then these components are what we're asking our classroom teachers to be doing. So working on student success skills, working on organizational skills, working on Wicker lessons, and then partnerships among students, classrooms, grade level schools, feeder patterns, families, communities, just kind of that wraparound idea. So we can keep going with that. A little bit about Wicker, because that's really been a big undertaking in our curriculum, kind of how it's been guiding our curriculum this year. Wicker stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading. And like I said, it's kind of an overlay. It can kind of overlay any curriculum that you're picking up and using. So I might take my math lesson for today and make sure that I'm looking through that math lesson and I'm incorporating writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading within that math lesson to make sure that I'm making it more rigorous and more relevant to our kids. So just a little bit about what each of those areas would look like. So writing, you're going to be including maybe pieces like note-taking, quick writes. It would be any form of writing. So he asked if it was like handwriting instruction, things like that. The writing idea is that you're writing to learn. So we're encouraging my first graders to take notes. So in the slideshow a little bit later, you'll see pictures of my first graders taking notes, taking 2-column notes and really organizing their thinking. We know that a lot of brain research shows that frontal lobe is lacking with a lot of our at-risk kids, and that's that organization piece, and that's why in the future they're not as successful in planning for their future, in making decisions that are going to benefit them long term because of that. So we're starting that in kindergarten and first grade, starting that idea of note-taking. So it might be writing that I'm doing and kind of modeling for them and they're following along with me, but at this point in the year my kids are really taking notes themselves. And then in 5th grade, you can talk a little bit about maybe.
We've applied it to lots of different areas with the writing piece, not just the note taking, but we also use it to build background by doing quick writes before we start new topics. We use it a lot for note taking, like in math this week. We were learning how to convert measurements, so we wrote the steps for converting measurements in one column and then examples of how to do those processes in the other column. And I've seen kids all week going back to those notes, using them to do different problems. So we use it in lots of different ways. Really across all content areas, which is really cool.
Inquiry's been another big piece that we've talked about with teachers. This actually goes along with our SIOP and our ELL instruction really well, with those levels of questioning and making sure that we're reaching a broad level when we're asking those level 1, 2, 3 questions. So we've had professional development with our teachers on creating those questioning techniques and really honing in on those skills with kids. So 5th grade's done a lot of modeling with Socratic seminars and doing some critical thinking activities. 1st grade, we're able to now identify what would a level 1 question be, what would a level 3 question be, and they'll say back to me, that's a level 3 question because you can only use your head with it. You can't see what's in front of you. You have to imagine it. And so it's exciting to see them kind of owning that piece of it as well. The collaboration piece, again with our SIOP, it kind of aligns right in with that, with doing collaborative groups, group projects, jigsaw activities, just all of those good models of instruction that we know our best practice for kids. Organization has been huge at Kirkwood this year. Every child 3 through 6 has an Avid school binder that they keep all of their things in. So red is for reading, so they have a red notebook and a red pocket folder that they keep all of their reading things in. Green is for math. Green is for math? Blue is for math. Green is for science. So it's all color coded. They have they keep it on their desk. It has their goals are in it. Everything. It's just kind of it's what I would do as an adult, knowing how I can best organize my thinking and learning.
I think I could use it.
Right? I mean, can't we all? So again, though, those are things that we assume that kids know how to do, and we assume that kids will pick that up along the way, but so many of our at-risk kids just don't. And kids in general just don't pick those things up naturally. So it's that explicit teaching, it's that modeling, encouraging, coaching, all of that goes with it. And then reading is the last piece. So even in math, we're working on reading. Even in science, in all of those content areas, we're working on content language. So again, with our SIA, we've tried to really kind of tie that in as much as possible because we know how important those features are in our instruction. So working on think alouds, KWLs, critical reading of passages, things like that. The next part is just it's like a 3-minute video that's super fast, so I'm sorry, you can watch it again, but we wanted to get as much in as we could. The class of 2000 whatever, we talk about that with our kids as the year that they'll go to college. So that's the year that they'll graduate high school and the year that they'll be able to go to college. So class mission statements have been a big piece of our culture this year. Talking about mindset, positive mindsets, growth mindset. We've been able to take our kids on college tours this year. 4th grade's taken their classes on college tours. They wrote college letters requesting information about admissions and ideas about what their college is about and why they want to go there. All of our teachers have posted their own college information in the classroom, so their diplomas, all of that to kind of celebrate that. We've had College Future Fridays where our kids wear their favorite college gear, which a lot of it's Iowa because we live in Iowa City. So they got to visit the College of Education and talk to future educators and the professors. In this section, you'll see pictures of note-taking with students, talking about the successful scholar, what a successful scholar looks like. You'll see pictures of our binders, goal-setting activities that we've done. The wicker instructions, so the different pieces of that model. A lot of collaborative work, a lot of inquiries involved with that. Pictures of our staff professional development that we've done this year. And then family events that we've held. We don't need to, this is just part of what we helped share with families. So responsibilities of teachers and scholars at school. within Avid, and then ways families can help with their kids at home. Questions? Sorry, that was super fast.
So what are you seeing for results or?
For results, we are, sorry, that noise is deafening. So we've looked at we're gathering our spring data right now, so we don't have anything on the table right now per se. So we're looking at our DRA reading scores, our fast reading scores, behavior referrals, things like that. I mean, I can give you a ton of anecdotal stuff right now since we don't have the hard data in front of us, but like I said with the note-taking piece, I mean, we're seeing those pieces kind of come to fruition by the end of the year. And if you want to talk about fifth grade stuff with the goal setting or the note-taking or
with note-taking in particular, it's something we've been doing since the very first week of school, and so it's really cool to see now at this time of the year that kids are choosing to set up their notes that way instead of me having to explicitly direct them to do things like that. So it's starting to become ingrained and it's starting to become second nature. I've also seen, we've done a lot of work with leveled questions, and my fifth graders are now at the point where they can write their own leveled questions. So if I say, okay, read this chapter, write 2 level 1 questions, they can come back to me the next day and have 2 good level 1 questions written, or if I ask them to write a level 3 question, they can do that. So they're able to apply the things that we've been practicing in a more practical way now, in a way that's kind of making a bigger impact. We've done a lot of Socratic seminars, which include scholarly language and discussing with each other. And I used to have to really lead those, but now kids can kind of, instead of me just giving a question and then they discuss it, they're asking each other questions and I'm kind of a bystander. So they're really taking responsibility over their own learning more than I've probably ever seen ever before with some of these strategies that I've never used before. So it's kind of cool to see the shift from where we were at the beginning of the year to with a lot of hand holding and here's what you're supposed to do and here's how to do it, to now they're kind of taking responsibility and handling it themselves.
So if you were running the district, what would you do next?
Continue to teach our teachers here to get better here, and then push it forward into other schools. I mean, I really hope that we can be more of a model school at Kirkwood to kind of help lead the way with that, because it is it's a big undertaking. Our teachers are super committed here to it. I think that for all of us, it's kind of a breath of fresh air with our curriculum. It's a way to kind of implement our curriculum in a way that's culturally relevant and works for our ELL kids. It assists us in becoming better teachers with better tools. In my particular, we've looked at our data in the fall and winter so far with our AVID classrooms and our non-AVID classrooms. So while we are pushing it out school-wide right now, there are only 3 classroom teachers who are trained formally with AVID right now. So we've been able to implement our stuff from day one, and we've kind of brought teachers along with that as the year has gone on. And so we do have data that's going to be coming in that'll show an AVID classroom versus the non-AVID first grade classrooms. And I'm seeing growth with that in my first grade. And there's tons of factors that are attributed to that, but I feel like the difference that AVID has made in my classroom this year, in my instruction and making me a better educator, is really priceless.
I know I'm more intentional about the things that I'm including in lessons than I probably ever have been, especially with the writing and the reading components, and making sure that those are included in math too, because this Envision curriculum that we're using is really wordy, and so these are skills that, yeah, they have to use in reading, but they really have to be able to apply it in math. And so that's made me more cognizant of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And so I know it makes me feel like I'm teaching better because I'm seeing kids working harder.
Yeah.
Do you find, with the family piece, do you find enthusiasm? Do you find receptive? I mean,
Yeah, one of the biggest pieces for me at training was, so we have these take-home binders. So it's a little 1-inch binder that is basically like their home-to-school connection. So all of they have a place for notes that go home, a place for work that goes home, tools that they keep in there. So like a 100 chart and a multiplication chart in 3rd grade. I mean, things like that. They have a pencil pouch in there, so they have their supplies, because goodness knows, I can't even find pencils at my house. So I mean, so we try to kind of keep it in a local place for them. So at the Summer Institute, I was like, I will send that home and I will never see it again. Like the binder's going to disappear. I will never see. We don't ever get things that come back, just because the kids are so all over the place. And the the leader said to the group, she's just like, and that's totally true if that's what you believe that your kids will do. They won't come back if that's what you believe. And I was like, I don't like to hear that. And so I changed my mindset on that, and I had every binder come back every day. Notes come back, notes come to me. I get papers signed, so that in and of itself is like worth its weight in gold for me, because the communication piece is just so hard. We had goals that we set out, so I had a cover page with the child's goal on it. They were all individualized for the kids. Their graphs were in it. I had a cover page on it that I needed the parent to sign, so that I signed it, the kid signed it, I wanted the parent to sign it. I had all of mine back within a week. And there's been years, this is my 5th year teaching first grade, that I've just never had a paper come back signed from families who just, whether it's a language barrier, whether it's whatever it is. So that connection piece has been huge for us, just that organization piece alone.
I've heard parents say that the backpack is like the place they don't want to go.
No.
Because it's like a mess of papers at the bottom and you never know what's going to be in there. There could be moldy carrots for all you know. And so, but I've heard parents say that this year with the binders, it's one thing that they pull out, they know where to go to find what they need to find, and they put it right back. And even with 5th graders, I can send home like their math notebook to help them with homework, and the math notebook comes back because they clip it in their binder, it stays in their binder until they get back to school. So that's something that I never would have done in the past. Like, sure, take your notebook home, because it never would have come back. But now they have a spot where they can keep it and it stays there. And I've had a lot of really good feedback from parents about like, yeah, now I know where to find stuff, and it's not the scary place that it used to be.
At our beginning of the year event, so we had kind of a kickoff beginning of the year for Avid. We had, I don't even know what our number was, 500 people come to our event. I've never seen that many people here at once. Never seen that many families, extended families. Like, it was really exciting. And so we're doing a send-off event in a few weeks. And so hopefully that'll have just as great of attendance as this did. We had a kiddo at the beginning of the year who was after school, didn't have a ride, whatever, and you were out there with them and asked, like, did they do the number? And they were like, no, I don't know their number. And they were like, wait, I do. And they pulled out their Avid binder, and inside was their parents' contact information. And so it's just like that kind of, those are super anecdotal, but that's really empowering for a lot of our kids who just don't have that in their toolbox naturally. So, yeah.
As a parent of a 3rd grader who gets the homework at home and is told I don't know what I'm talking about, I think this is great. It would be really helpful for me to see the notes that are happening in class.
Yes.
My child goes to Corval Central, so anyway, hopefully it'll move over there someday.
Right.
But my 2 questions are, I'm wondering if you could describe for me if there's any kid that you've seen make a transition with a scholarly mindset from maybe where they were headed to where you think they might be headed now. And then I'm also wondering, how does it work when you have a new kid come in the middle of the year? Because I know this is a very mobile school, and how's that working for you?
Oh man. Well, I have a kid that pops to mind with your question about have you seen one make a big transition. So I had a kid at the beginning of the year who was getting into fist fights and wasn't really committed to school and like just didn't really care, was only here to like socialize, but really was not getting along well with other kids. So he was just not having a good time. I had to like go to his house for conferences. It was a rough first half of the year. And then once we started doing the explicit goal setting, and we set a goal for him, and he was one that's getting progress monitored on FAST every week, so he can see how he's doing every week. Once we set that goal, I saw him instantly switch because he started making progress towards something that he knew he could get there. And he has way surpassed his goal. His goal is like 120 words per minute. Last week he read 160. He's never, I've never seen him work as hard as he has since we set that goal. And we got him organized and we were like, okay, well, this is what your binder's for. And he, a couple weeks ago, lost his whole backpack and was devastated. Just devastated because he doesn't have his binder anymore. He doesn't have his planner. Everything went missing and he's devastated. But he bounced right back and was like, well, I don't need my planner. I can just write my notes in my notebook and my dad can sign my notebook. And so he made his own planner. And then he was like, well, I don't really need a whole binder. I can just make myself, he fully took on the responsibility to just replace everything and get it all taken care of. And he's been fine. he was like down for a couple days, but bounced right back. And I've never seen a kid make that kind of turnaround as quickly as he did with all of these things that we have in place. I think like the goal setting was a big part, but him having the tools and the strategies to be organized was also a big part. Getting the repetitive practice and reading that we get has been a big part. It's all kind of worked together to make him make those changes. And then as far as the transient population, I've had 6 kids move out and 8 kids move in this year. And sometimes it works well when like one leaves and then I can just take his stuff and give it to the next kid. But I also have like a stash of binders and dividers and notebooks and stuff ready to go, and I can just put together a binder, and my kids in my class teach the new kid how to use their stuff. And I give a quick background, and then the rest of the kids at their table group have it covered. And so I don't really have to worry too much about these new kids, at least as far as getting them the materials
Acclimated
and how to
to the-
use the
yeah.
materials and things like that. Because the other kids in my class have it handled. They know how it works, and they want to see their classmates be
Right.
successful. So I haven't really I've had a very transient class this year, but I haven't really had issues with coming or going in terms of that.
So what's the recommendation on next steps or scaling it up or?
So next year, we're going to bring it out to Northwest Junior High as well, and have some training occur this summer with both principals and I believe 6 teachers, one of which will become the Avid elective teacher. So
Yeah, so
that
a little bit-
starts to transition a little bit.
Yep, so Avid Elementary, like I said, is global. So the idea is going to be our whole elementary is doing this.
Right.
Avid in the junior high setting is considered Avid elective. So just as if you're choosing your classes, the school would nominate children from the elementary level to become Avid elective students in junior high. So if you think about it like a success center model, or kids who were kind of recommended to kind of get that additional support, that's kind of the kids who would be targeted and ideally put into that track for an Avid elective. And it could be, there's lots of reasons. I'm not an expert in secondary with Avid, but that's what I know about Avid elective in the junior high level.
Am I right in this understanding as well that they've seen the benefit to building-wide
Yes.
introduction of Avid
Mhm.
skills and strategies, and so that also
As a foundation.
might be a component even in the secondary?
Yeah, oh, for sure. So hopefully, I really I hope that our kids will go to junior high and the junior high teachers will be like, that's a Kirkwood kid, because they got their notes down like solid. And they know the organization. So I guess I didn't really explain that AVID stands for Achievement Via Individual Determination. So that individual determination piece is what Jessica was talking about with the kids owning that. So they're owning their own decisions. The college readiness piece, they're going to own that decision. When they get to the point where they're making decisions for their future, when they're 16, 17, 18, they're making that decision for them based on what they've been given. So
Sort of what elementary level?
So right now, we're keeping it with Kirkwood, trying to expand it to the entire
yeah, so we're going to get
staff.
hopefully at least 4 more teachers trained this next summer to expand through their grade levels, and then keep pushing it out from there.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're the lead model, you keep going, but why not the next 5 or 6 elementaries?
For us right now, I think the cost associated with it will be the next hurdle. So ensuring first that what we've got going on in these buildings is strong and we're yielding results, I think it's critical. Last year, just for training purposes alone between the 2 staffs, Northwest and Kirkwood, the training that's occurred so far, plus the Northwest this summer, it's around $23,000 for a piece of the training. So that's an eventual hurdle that we'll have to turn across.
So 23 per school, and
No, so for both Northwest Junior High and Kirkwood this past summer, I don't know if that includes Kirkwood working teachers and stuff as well. There's materials costs associated with it as well. It sounds like it was about $5,000 for Kirkwood.
To get us started this, yeah. And then in the future, we're looking at, we've already begun the discussion of, we got materials that we need to have, so putting that on supply lists and having our SFAs assist with the Operation Backpack, all that kind of stuff. So,
maybe it's a follow-up, but what would it cost or what would it take to do 5 or 6 elementaries? What would the funding strategy be? Is there not, there must be categorical funding we could apply to personnel.
That's what we're going to now. I think like her earlier point, once we have a model school, we can say this is how it's effectively rolled out, and then we can enlist some support before we start rolling out to other schools and be in an implementation phase there. I think that will help us be able to better or more effectively scale it up to other ones. The secondary piece is the same way, right? We want to have an effective implementation. at one school first and make sure that, as Amy said too, it's yielding results. And so, I mean, I
I
think
hear
we're seeing
you.
those anecdotally.
Two
but-
ways to go, though, slowly or
Totally.
fast away. And, you
And
know,
we
so-
would love for our whole school to be, I mean, to get that training, because when we were immersed in that training, like I said, like it shifted my mind and how I thought about things. Because I really did say, I'm never into that binder again. Like, it'll just go, and it made me think about it differently when I was immersed in that training. So, I mean, the training is vital. It really
This
is.
is the proven system. I mean, I know you got anecdotal
Yeah,
data, but
yeah,
they've got all sorts of
definitely.
data
It's,
saying it
yeah,
works.
if you check the website, it's kind of incredible, all the success that they've had, but.
I don't know where everybody else is at, but I'd ask why not faster.
Was there any discussion during North Central?
Have to lean on you guys.
I mean, I think that Northwest was, I could be wrong, but chosen as maybe a next step because Kirkwood was kind of in doing that, and we were still kind of in that limbo land between where Kirkwood kids were going to go. So that, but yeah, North Central would be great. I mean, especially with our kids heading that way, at least by choice. So.
I think the study habit components and everything are awesome, and it doesn't matter what avenue of life you take;
Mhm.
those carry through.
Absolutely.
I have some personal concerns when we're essentially pushing from a very early age, saying everybody has to go to college. I myself personally feel making sure every student recognizes that post-secondary accreditation is going to be necessary in the modern work
Yep.
environment. It doesn't necessarily mean college, but it means you are going to have skills or a certificate that with a marketable skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, the college days and everything like that are fine, but there's tremendous need and opportunities for students in other avenues that don't require college or debt. The study skills are great.
Mm-hmm.
But that benefits everybody. But I myself personally, I would like to see it opened up that it's essentially saying you are going to need skills and certification post high school.
Yep, and that's kind of I mean, I guess that's that individual piece of just making sure that they had every tool in their toolkit to make that decision with what they wish to do, and making sure that we know that all those doors
the
are
individual
open.
determination is great, but
Yeah.
you know,
I totally, yeah. We had the same questions at the training, trust me, we had
Right.
round and round discussions about that, so.
Because we would collapse if everyone went to college.
Absolutely.
We couldn't sustain it as a nation, and we would. Most of my customers have that. I have many with PhDs, many with masters, and the vast majority are college graduates.
You know, it sounds like there's an element of it that is kind of standardizing the instruction from one room to the next, and so I'm just kind of curious how the other teachers. I mean, do they, you know,
Yeah, I see what
sometimes
you're
if
saying.
everybody's telling you how to do your job,
Like a script.
it's too constricting. Do you feel like there's any
Mhm. I actually
resistance to
feel
it at all?
like it's much less restrictive than giving me a curriculum and saying, follow the book. And so it's saying, here's the book, here's all of these strategies that you can design around your classroom of kids and what works best for your kiddos. And you're an expert in this, so do with it what you know how to do. So for me, it gives me a lot more autonomy, actually, than it does kind of make me fit into a mold. I want to make sure that I'm using best practices, so I think that's kind of the overlay over it all. So our Wicker strategies that we went through, those are best practice that we're using. So those are, while sort of standardized in the note taking, those kind of things, it can still be very. The delivery of it can be very individualized.
Do you get the sense the other teachers in the building are like, sign me up, or?
I mean,
Right now?
that's not to say there hasn't been
Mhm.
some apprehension, because it is a lot. There's a lot in Avid to consider when you're planning a lesson around it. So it is a little overwhelming, and that's where I think the training, getting more teachers trained, is really, really imperative, because it kind of gives you the buy-in, like you get it more when you see it in action in lots of different ways. So the more teachers that we can have trained, I think the less apprehension there is. But I think Renee is right when she says that it does provide autonomy, because you could see 5 different Wickerized lessons taught 5 different ways in 5 different classrooms. Or even in my own classroom, you could see 3 different Wickerized lessons in a row and they'd all be taught differently. So it is a lot to hand a teacher and say, here, try all of these things. But it also is like a way that you can really design your instruction to fit the needs of your kids better than than giving you a book and saying, here, follow this lesson. So it's a little overwhelming at first, but the more you come to understand why it is the way it is, and the more you come to understand how it's effective in the classroom, the easier it is to implement and the less stressful.
Some of the teachers who I feel that I was concerned would be more resistant are actually some of them who've taken it and been like, I need more of this, like I need more. So I mean, it can go either way, I think. So it's kind of in the presentation of it as
Managing
well.
our time for tonight, we're going to need to wrap this up as your final.
Can I ask one more question? So in terms of the funding question, I'm just looking at the website and the news articles there. And maybe these are charter schools, it doesn't say that, but there's quite a few schools that have funding by outside corporations.
Corporate sponsored
either through
things.
grant funding
We were talking
or
about that
corporate
yesterday,
sponsors.
how that
Is
works.
that something we can explore?
Sure.
And I will put Kirkwood on and say we will do whatever you need us to do to make sure that we can help with that funding. I mean, it's really changing our school.
Are there any reasons you can't do that? So right now, we're using IDA Part B, Coordinated Early Intervention Services dollars to be able to fund what we're doing. So as we're just sitting over here talking categorical dollar-wise, it's not Iowa Core or teacher quality that we can dip into. The only program that's coming to mind quickly would be either Title I funding or dropout prevention. Dropout prevention budget was approved last December or January, so those funds are allocated for next year. So if we're thinking about potentially where might there be funding, I would say potentially Title I dollars, and I'm looking over at Diane, because that budget will be set in June again. We've got that quite a bit locked down into staffing. So go to corporate entities and say, could you sponsor this first? Are we allowed to do that?
Sure. I mean, I think it would be similar to the lead hire equal opportunity schools thing we talked about last meeting. They said a lot of times schools do these in tandem, and obviously we found some or have worked on some support for that. So if that's something we can pursue, we definitely can ask that question.
Let's bring it back, right, in terms of a recommendation of what the funding strategy might be.
And if anybody has any questions further, please just let us know
I
here.
just have a quick comment.
Yeah.
Last July 12th at our meeting, this Avid program was supported unanimously by the board, and I think that this is really an example. Hearing your enthusiasm, hearing about anecdotal cases of kids and families being enthusiastic and learning strategies that will be lifelong, make them lifelong learners no matter what they do.
Yeah.
I think that's really exciting. And in 9 months to go from something sitting at the board table where
Right,
we all
that we didn't even know we were going to training.
We're looking at
Yeah.
like, okay, how much does this cost?
Yeah.
What does
Yeah.
it do? And have unanimous support from the board. To hear 9 months later the type of enthusiasm is really energizing. To me, I can't speak on behalf of
Well, thank
everybody
you.
else.
We are
but
excited,
I think that it's something that I'm really excited about. Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks for your support.
And I just want to wrap by saying thank you for your leadership in the
Yeah.
district, and thank you to Kirkwood for being, the lead school.
We do what we can.
And I have no doubt this is going to be totally successful, and it's your leadership that's going to make it happen for the district. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your support. So let us know if you have any further questions. You got our need, you can get to us through Anita or whatever.
That was a great review. So
Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
all right. So I suggest then we move on to the topic of students against hate and discrimination, taught the corrective items. And I'd ask the students to join us at the table. Are we going to jump right into curricular options? Or? All right, sounds good. Take it.
How are you doing?
Good. How are
There's a
you?
chair if you need it.
Thank you.
Or there's some over there too, but if you want.
I can just pop over there.
Okay.
Chris.
What?
No, she wasn't.
Can you pull up the
Oh,
document on there?
of course. Sorry, I didn't know there was one up there.
Brady Shot, I've worked with him on a few different options for you. And what I'd like to do is to kind of have you listen to these options, give us your feedback, and maybe some direction as to which options or option might be the best to proceed with. So the first option on your list there is if we were to add a one trimester graduation requirement. So if we were to require an ethnic studies course as part of our graduation courses that all kids would have to take. Just a little bit of data there. If we're estimating about 1,000 kids in class and about 30 kids per class, that would cost us about 2.4 FTE to add a graduation requirement for one trimester. Of course, that cost could be less if kids opted out of taking a different elective and would choose this one instead. It would also impact about 25% of our kids right now have a full class load. They ask for a PE waiver, so they don't even have to take PE because their class load is full. They can't fit a trimester PE in. So that would impact those students who are taking that full class load as well. Would have to give up something in order to fit this trimester in. And then we would need to decide as a board if you're going to make that a graduation requirement, with which graduating class would you want to start that. Usually we would think about an entering freshman class that we say, okay, now the rules have kind of changed for you, and now to graduate we need to have this. And Brady's going to talk to you a little bit about what the process would be to develop the kind of content that we would be having in that course.
Yeah, so on the likely process, thanks. I tried to think about how we do curriculum review and use that as a little bit of a template. And so one of the things that we do there is, one, I think we're going to have to contact some comparable schools. There's a few out there that have a requirement. Los Angeles School District, Berkeley has run it for quite a while. Oakland Unified is doing it now. So there's some out there that are doing this as a course, either required or elective. So I think those would maybe be some models that we've used. University of California at Berkeley, I think, has sort of led this since the mid-90s, basically, in terms of developing curriculum and some curricular offerings. So general process would also include data collection from various stakeholders. We do that with our curriculum review, just to go out and ask parents and teachers and students to help us identify any gaps that we have. This would clearly be one where we're saying we have a gap and we want to work to fill it the best that we can. In terms of the teachers' perspective, I think we need some sort of working group with administrators, teachers, and students that could come together to see which direction we want to go. There aren't a lot of required or even elective ethnic studies classes that are out there. The ones that are definitely take different approaches. And so there's a lot of ways that you could go. It's a really big topic, it's an emerging field, but there's not, I think that you just have to figure out what does it mean to say we're doing an ethnic studies course. There'd have to be professional learning for our teachers who are going to implement this. You've got to figure out I'm a social studies person, so I think it's a logical fit in social studies, but it doesn't have to be in social studies necessarily. So I think that would have to be some sort of conversation. And then I think there needs to be a discussion with that working group and then your teachers and administrators about what your outcomes are. I mean, what is it that you really want from this class, and how are you going to know if you're getting it? And I think that's just a smart way, of course, anytime you're going to develop a course. I don't have a recommendation one way or the other on that, because I think that has to be part of that conversation, given the variety of ways that you might be able to go with it. We've been using an understanding by design framework for our curriculum writing, and I would propose on any of these options that just to maintain fidelity with that process, that we stick with that, which is to identify sort of your big essential understandings, and then to really think about what you want students to know, understand, and be able to do, and then transfer goals, essential questions. So there's a lot of work that we've been doing that can serve as a template with this. The final little piece, I don't know if I have it in here or not. The Iowa Social Studies curriculum, standards are changing, and Diane and I were talking about this. They are not exactly like global in their orientation, for better or for worse. They're really emphasizing Iowa history and financial literacy. So we'd have to do a gap analysis or some sort of crosswalk between what we came up with and the state standards, just to make sure that we are in alignment. So a lot of the process, I think, except for option 4, and I don't want people to jump ahead necessarily, but a lot of the process is probably pretty simple. Just have to make decisions about whether it's a requirement, whether it's an elective, or whether you embed many units within existing curriculum, so.
Has anyone reached out to the University of Iowa to see any assistance they might have? With
We did. We actually, there's a former she was West Side grad, and now is doing her PhD work. I think it's up in Minnesota. So not Iowa yet, but we do have a contact with some Big Ten folks who are in the field of ethnic studies, in terms of ethnic studies. And she's got us connected if we choose to go that route with someone in that field. For option 4, we have a real strong connection with the University of Iowa with their global studies certificate. So it's a great point. We definitely, I think they tend to be a little more differentiated in the courses that they offer and their fields of study than your secondary folks who are more general maybe. So I think we have to do more outreach on any of the options.
So option 2 would follow a very similar process. The only little difference there is you could offer it as an elective and not a requirement. And that cost is really going to depend on how popular it is as an elective, and if students don't take another elective and replace it with this one. So that's just a general cost estimate, probably on the high end there too. With option 2, you are going to reach everybody. You can reach those students that are electing into it, but the students who want to be in, and this is maybe more open to them about different ethnicities. Option 3 would be a way that we could reach everyone, but without some of the cons of maybe option 1. So in option 3, we could take 2 courses that currently are required. 7th grade global studies, 9th grade American studies. And we can look at infusing more ethnic studies within those courses. So they're already in the student schedule, they're already taking it, we already have the staff for it, but it's really changing the curriculum that's being offered. And looking at, is there a way to take a 12-week trimester and instead kind of use that across the whole year into maybe 6 2-week mini units that are presented throughout the year. So again, same kind of content. It would require though us removing some of the content that's currently being taught in those classes, replacing it with ethnic studies content. And then option 4 is kind of a unique one, and this was presented to us from Jason Harshman, right?
Yep.
From the University of Iowa. He just contacted us about the same time that this was being discussed at the board. This is a concept that would be new to Iowa. There's a few high schools that are currently exploring this. It is in 4 other states at this point. And what this would be is having students be able to have the option to graduate with a global studies certificate. And to obtain that certificate, they have to complete these requirements that are listed here. So they have to complete 8 courses that we would identify. And we could identify some courses already, have a global theme to them. They would have to participate in 4 globally focused activities that would be approved by a global scholar committee. So we would create a committee at the school level that would approve these activities. They'd have to participate in a service learning project and 1 project experience, kind of a culminating experience at the end, and kind of do a capstone portfolio there. So this would be something that you would create a committee at the school that would oversee this and take it beyond just taking a course in it, but really move it into action. And kids that are out in the community doing service projects, doing some activities that are really putting kind of meat on the learnings that they're taking part in.
So that'd really be cross-curricular. You could have an art class that could fit, world language class or social sciences. That's where it does broaden it out beyond social studies.
And we had some world language teachers attend a conference where this was presented. They came back kind of excited about this idea and what this could be. So that's a whole different look on how to highlight ethnic studies.
Do you have a recommendation?
I think when we look at these options, part of the first conversation we had, there was 2 big components. What's the structural component of the class, the logistical piece that we'll present here to you, and then the makeup of the course and what we believe about should be in the course. And I really think, like Brady said, we'd have to go through the process of what that looks like. I think if we were going to make a recommendation, we would probably most likely start with option 2 is what we would say, and then can you implement that course, and then eventually look to say, is it successful? Is this something we believe everybody should have? I think the hard thing about option one, like Diane said, is some of the unintended consequences about putting it as a graduation requirement. I know that reach isn't the same, but is this a step then you take to say, okay, eventually long term, if this is what we want to do, and how do we start as elective, do those process points, and then move towards graduation component if that's what we want. I think that's part of what we want to get input from you guys on too, is what your expectations are for us to move forward with it. So
I would add, what you said about option one. I know a lot of kids who are 100% full on their schedule and would have to give up something that's very important to them. This is a requirement, and this would only be a trimester, right? Which means they're giving up a whole year course that they're very interested in. So I think that would be nice, but if you were going to do that, I would suggest offering a early bird option or something so that kids don't have to give up a whole year course because they are required to take this one trimester. The other thing that concerns me about, the thing that concerns me about option two, which I think would be my, where I would go as well, is that I would want to ask if you think this is going to be an upperclassman course elective or an underclassman, and then I would say we should ask ourselves when is the right time for kids to take this class. And my personal opinion would be junior high. I would say not to wait till they're a senior. You're going to draw the ones that are already interested in it in their senior year, and then that's a different type of course. So, you have to think about when is the best time. I don't know if there's any way you can incorporate some of this curriculum into the 6th grade curriculum. I know that 6th grade teachers would probably go, but I really am concerned that the subject matter needs to be taught early.
Yeah.
We lose some of the value of it if we wait until they're upperclassmen.
Yeah, I don't disagree. One of the cautionary things, this is where the K-6 curriculum in social studies is going to have to adapt once the new social studies standards are set. And I don't know, they're in the final stages of the review process and of the rewriting, if any of that takes place. So 6th grade right now is ancient studies, and that may change. So where it would be in terms of 5th or 6th grade, I think your point's still really well taken already. It may not, we could do it in 6th grade now, I can see a real logical place, but 6th grade may be changing. So that would be, just in terms of the timeline as well, it would probably push your timeline a little bit, just because we have to see what the state's saying. They're going to be much more prescribed in terms of what kindergarten 1st through 6th, actually through 8th grade, teaches. Where before now the standards are a little bit more nebulous. This, at least if the draft follows, and we have someone on the review committee, they're thinking it's going to be more. So that might, which isn't horrible. It might just mean if you went down to that upper elementary level, it might take maybe a year, so we know exactly what it looks like.
So did we hear some reactions from our guests?
Jade, students, how about you guys? Any thoughts?
Well, I think that my top two so far have been option 1 and 3. I like the fact that I like the idea of making this a required course just because I feel like it's very important to us. And it's something that's, like you said, it's a rising course of study, and the benefits of the course are evident. Lots of different classroom settings. So I feel like option 3 is a pretty good one because, from what I understand, 8th and 9th grade history is like retaught. It's American studies and American studies again. So there's a way you can shift American history more towards learning about years of people from your freshman year. That'd be the most beneficial. And I agree with what you said about implementing this early on. That's when kids are more susceptible to this. And by the senior year, you kind of set your ways. And I know I am. So, I really do think that it'd be important to implement it as early as possible. And I feel like we already just discussed this, but the fear of making it an elective is people don't believe it will take it, instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think 1 and 3 are pretty good options. Kind of just adding on, like Jade said, the people who do need the class won't take it. You'll learn like it's that's kind of my fear, and then it would just be like, not necessarily a waste, but we wouldn't have gotten as much progress as we would have wanted if it were a requirement or if everyone had to take it.
And I think I speak on behalf of all thought members when I say that I really commend the amount of work that you all put into this. I'm so grateful that you all are taking this seriously, that you are considering this in weight and a plan and really structured. Thank you all so much. This is what we wanted.
Perfect. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're envisioning the content to be? Because I do feel like some of the decisions about what to do with this depend on.
Yeah, can I ask a question that sort of would get at that maybe as well? So we had on option 3, 7th grade global studies, 9th grade American studies, but Jade, you had mentioned, and Jane maybe were, sort of following up, if it was, we don't have on their 8th grade American studies. So do you think it would be, better to do 8th grade American studies at 9th grade and just look at that American history 2-year block of time that's, 8th and 9th grade and infuse it in there rather than global studies?
Well, I do have concern about 9th graders who take Pbis history. Because then when would they?
Yeah, I don't
know if
disagree.
that's an option at West, but I know it is a city. Then I don't know when they would have the opportunity.
What about, when you talked about younger students doing it, what about 7th and 8th grade?
I think that would be
Bridge the global
optimal if
studies
there's
with the American studies.
Rather than
Well, that way
ninth,
you're getting them
lose
when
your
they're
8th
younger,
grade.
getting them connected to it earlier. Mandatory, everyone's going to take it the same sequence, they're going to have the same grade levels.
And as Jake said earlier, we do basically repeat what we learned between American Studies and 8th grade and American Studies. And me and SC are both taking AP US History, and I've learned essentially the same things that I learned last year. So I think that would be a perfect time to get this gender sequence in. There wouldn't be as much repetition, and a lot of people would be benefiting.
Well, 8th and 9th grade, though, will be different if you just do American Studies, because it's just the chronology. If you do 8th plus your 8th U.S. History, then you are going to have overlap because your 8th grade year of colonial to Reconstruction, you're going to repeat in 8th U.S. History. But if you didn't do 8th U.S. History as a 9th grader, and you did 8th grade American Studies, you're going colonial period to Reconstruction. It's basically chronological U.S. history, and then 9th grade is, we have a little bridge unit over Reconstruction to the industrial era. And basically it starts at the end of the 20th century. But that would mean, to me, that's I think, Chris, on your not to lose that question, is then your, and this is something that they struggle with, well, there's just differences in how curriculum is set up as you take a look at it. Is it infusing it into the American experience, which to me is what you're doing with American history, and then you can do outreach, of course, but it's different groups and their struggle for power and equity within the American story, which is, to me, your 8th and 9th grade.
Plus, I guess when I first heard it, part of what the appeal was for me of the whole idea was that it was essentially a humanities class, and there was an element to it that sounded like it would be heavy on discussions and debate, and almost, sort of straddling history, but also philosophy, style talks about what's the good and the true and all that.
Yeah.
And, so I just don't know what your vision of sort of, what are you after? What do you want to get into that 7th and 8th grade curriculum that feels missing?
Yeah, well, I feel that doing this course in 7th and 8th grade when discussing history is, part of it is that we want every student to be educated on the history of everybody in the United States, but also what started our concern about this is things that are happening today. So I think that, as you were saying, straddling more than just history.
When I think of humanities class, I think that's what they're all about.
Yeah.
They take the things that are going on today and they put it in a context, and you realize you're not the first person in history to have had these discussions and debates, and it's all tied together in a way that seems a little bit different than purely history.
I think we can all benefit from being a little more humane.
So
part of the content be rolled into humanities and the junior year history course be just humanities instead of, what is it now, humanities or another option, Europe?
That's in the English department, you
Oh,
know,
that's English.
humanities, yeah, so I'm not quite as
Oh,
familiar
that's
with
right,
it,
it's,
yeah, but
British lit.
yeah, so that's where you get American Lit, Brit Lit, American Lit Honors, Brit Lit Honors, American Humanities. That's where they have that strand of year-long courses for juniors or seniors to satisfy an English graduation requirement. There you're running into that later on in their career. I'd be, yeah.
How much do you think you could squeeze 7th and 8th grade American Studies, Global Studies, still tick off the boxes you're required to tick off, but find some room for,
Yeah, the
some
curriculum
different
rewrite
stuff?
will have a little bit to say with this. I will say that the Iowa History Infusion and the financial literacy is going to put a stress, just K-12, on what's going on. And my sense is the state's pretty hardcore about that. That's the governor's office, the Iowa History.
And the
yeah,
financial literacy is part of global?
You
or-
should see,
Is that department?
K-12. Yeah.
Honestly, that's why when you asked, we didn't go right to 3, because I think 3, on the surface looks like it could make a lot of sense because we've just, incorporated into what we're already doing. But I
That'd
think
be
Brady's
tough.
speaking to some of those added stresses we already know are coming in that end. And, and honestly, I feel like we try to do this already anyways in our courses, right? For some reason, we're not being successful, right? That we need to do something additional, and not that we went and put a ton of effort into trying to do it better and put a different lens on it. But I think that's a little bit of the struggle there is, how much better can we do that aspect? And we would certainly try if that's what we went back to, but there's always going to be competing pressures for that. And so if we're really serious about it, I think that's why you didn't hear me say option 3 right away, just because it's all those other pieces.
And to make it a cohesive year with financial literacy, Iowa history, throwing this in, trying to make it
Yeah.
make sense throughout the
Yeah.
year, that it builds upon itself
Yeah.
in a 175-day year.
Yeah. That'd be a challenge.
I think that there's a real challenge there, and then it's, when you add that in, what do you take out? And
Yeah.
I think, didn't we have a Latin American?
We did, last-
studies that has been eliminated.
Yeah, it was a gap that we had, that we added it back into global studies, but then it put pressure on our other 6 units of study. So.
Is there going to be an Iowa history assessment?
Question.
I don't know.
If there's no assessment, I don't want to be Mr. Cynical about it, but I mean, what guides how much time you devote
Oh,
to
I
something?
asked the same thing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to bird walk on the standards too much, but you should see them. Yeah, I think it's possible to do it. I think it's true. The financial literacy ones are the ones that to me are really fun.
Yeah,
You look
those
at
are-
what they want the third
those are
graders to be
gonna
able to
be a
do.
tough fit.
Yeah. And I'm just like, what in the world?
Why isn't that part of
What are you
math?
thinking?
They're already sitting in the 21st century skills too.
Yeah.
Because they can dump them in social studies.
Yeah, we're dumping ground. So I think it's, it would be a challenge on option 3. There's no question about it.
So what you asked us tonight was for direction.
Yeah.
So is there strong support for option 3?
Can I just ask a question before you go to the next? This 7th grade year,
Yeah.
a lot of what I hear, and I have a 7th grade daughter that has multiple study helps. Like, is there, and then people say there's always, it seems to be a lack of electives, I guess, classes to take as a 7th grader. I mean, could it not just be could we not look at an option where it's a required 7th grade class, and do a lot of students have full schedules?
As a 7th grader, I'm not sure about you guys.
Oh, right, so.
I was involved in music and foreign language.
You can't take foreign language in 7th grade.
Right.
So,
When I was in 7th grade at Celsius, I had 3 opens one trimester. I prayed for more electives, so I think that would be a great idea. But I still think that.
I don't want it to be an elective, if it could be a required trimester course.
And I think that's a great idea because I feel like these 7th grade classes are definitely underserved and the schedules running have too much free time for anything. That's the time when obviously you don't have that many commitments. You're like, what, 12? Get it in there. Learn how to be sensitive to other cultures and ethnicities. It's the perfect time. I love that idea.
Can I be honest though? I feel like high school is when you're the most like woke and you're the most capable of retaining this information, debating, having these kinds of discussions, and I guess discussing these things without like I don't know. When I was in 7th grade, I don't think I'd be mature enough to like even have these kind of discussions and these debates, and like I think it would be like really nice, I guess, if you could do it high school year, like high school American studies, you can incorporate it into it, because that's when you would be like, well, I don't even know, but I think high school is when you're the most capable of just being able to, I guess, retain information, discuss about it, debate about it, like high school.
But conversely, as a debater, I'm really firm on learning how to think critically, how to have discussions with other people, how to communicate a point. I think those are portable skills that we need to be teaching students at a young age. We need to be teaching them how to be able to have these arguments, how to listen to their peers' voices, not just float through life for a couple of years until you get to high school, and then it's like, oh, I need to start thinking about other people now.
Well, that sounds like option 3, though, right? I mean, infusing into 7th grade and infusing into 9th grade.
Yeah,
Potentially.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
But we don't have any. I mean,
So the other thing to kind of think about with the junior high piece is, so it's going to be kind of hard to explain. You might not follow me here, but so some students have a full schedule, right? 7th and 8th grade, but a lot of students don't. So it could be a required, not required. It's almost like what we do with keyboarding that's switched to the computer essentials course, right? We schedule a lot of students into that. The reach is much farther than a high school elective would be. Now, did we get every student into that all the time? No. You know, so I mean, there's some trade-off there. Your reach would go beyond students choosing to take an elective, because we would just automatically schedule a lot of junior high students into that, but students with a full slate of other classes, you know, that would be something you could consider waiving in a sense. You know, there would be some more room in that junior high day, so you could get more students with open periods. I think you would be running into the same problem with option 1 for some kids. But if you're serious about looking at the scope of it, I think you could have some better success in junior high. I think, she hits a good point as far as the maturity factor of what you're asking that course to do. But if we know the direction is to look at a junior high course, then we design it and we look for something that can be junior high. And like Marion said, I think that there's opportunities there for junior high kids to still be successful in that too.
do we have any required courses that we are not required to make required courses?
Oh, you didn't mention keyboarding. I would love to know a bit more about that. Because I remember in 7th grade I took keyboarding first trimester. We're using keyboarding as an example. So let's say you did not know how to type because you had not been required to take a keyboarding course in junior high. And when you hit high school, you had to start typing essays in English. Could you be disproportionately affected because you weren't able to type as well as your peers? You were making more mistakes. You had to put in more improvement.
Verify that.
And I think that not taking diversity class impacts our students in the same way. They're less able and capable of having these critical discussions and thinking on the same level as their peers who have done this research and taken this course. And that's why we want it to be a requirement. We want people to be able to think like that by the time they have hit high school.
I think my issue is, can you dig deep with 13? You know what I mean?
I think that's maybe why option 3 is best.
Yeah.
Lay a
Divided up.
ground base in 7th grade
And then dig deep in 9th grade?
Yeah.
See, I'm okay. I think that's...
I mean, essentially, that's to me what like the switch between 8th and 9th grade American studies
Yeah.
was. Like that 8th grade was to kind of get your feet in the water, and 9th grade
Yeah.
was more about actually like evaluating, examining history and how it impacts us today. So I think it's smart to divide it up between middle school and high school.
Is that possible though? I mean, if we couldn't keep Len, or whatever
Well,
it was, and
Well, I think if you were
is
talking
there room
option,
for this?
if we think option 3 is the general direction, I think there's a lot more work we could do on option 3, right? So we presented 4 kind of surface level options. If we think this is the direction we want to go, we'll take it back and we'll look at our sequence. We'll look at, we can even get into the language arts sequence a little bit and say, okay, how do we address this from a current curriculum standpoint? If that's the
Current
option
state
we need to go.
standards,
Yeah.
common state standards, look for
Yeah.
alignment, look for.
And that'll narrow us into where we should be headed with this.
We might have to be a little creative and just swap it around and be a little, I think it would be important to have in your 7th grade English classes, have a conversation, about it as well. So I think that can alleviate some of the stress that might exist in any one course, but you probably get a broader reach than different types of discussions in different classes, I think, typically emerge, so. If that's the direction.
Is option 3, I don't think easier is the word I want to use, but I can't think of the synonym. Is option 3 easier to actually implement than option 1? Because I'm just speaking for Saad here. Option 1, I think, was the initial goal. But if it looks like option 3 would, we would have the resources and the money in the district to do.
Time would be an issue too. Option 3, I think, would move a lot faster than option 1. Right. That's another issue.
And personally, I'd have like zero interest in option 1 unless we did a holistic review of everything. You know what I mean? Tonight I can say 3, go for it, let's get this started.
Okay.
And, it could evolve. It could evolve into 2, it could evolve into 1.
And then I think basically.
Yeah.
Can I make one possibly controversial suggestion?
Depending on the suggestion.
We're gonna put you two together.
I'm not about calling it ethnic studies.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to make it universal, I think it's almost signaling to some students that this doesn't speak to them. When it should in fact speak to everybody. And I'm sure you can come up with some name, contemporary problems in society or something that may be more specific than that. But I'm worried that you're going to almost start with resistance from the people that you conversations.
Alliterative, I like
We
it.
should call it what it is.
Well,
Because I think that's the most direct approach to
Come up with a
it.
class name if it's incorporated.
well, I guess if it's incorporated into things.
To me, I think there's just more powerful teaching and purposeful and mindful, intentional teaching that's going to take place in 7th grade or 9th grade, working with students and administrators to see what that looks like, where the appropriate spots to infuse it. Just being, sort of upfront about these are voices in the American experience that don't get heard often enough, and we're going to expose you to them. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, because even if something doesn't necessarily apply to you, it'll.
Yeah, it's you're part of the experience. Yeah. So I'm with you. I think because you're embedding, and that's one of the nice things about going with 7th and 9th grade Global Studies, American Studies, is that you've already got your course titles set. But now you just have to think through what your syllabus might look like and how you do that, and how you sort of own some of these changes.
Right, are we good?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. I know it would achieve different goals, and so this would be in addition to what we're talking about, but I really like option 4. If there's a way we can implement that.
Yeah,
in
we got
addition.
people still looking at that one, actually.
It would be a total different focus.
Yeah.
Different student would take that probably.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really neat idea.
Yeah.
It is a good idea. I think what we would like to see the university continue to work on that would help our students want to pursue it, other than just the intrinsic motivation to want something like that, is, kind of, what's that do for you, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
what
what a
does
lot
that
of
get
students
you?
are going to ask
Sure.
us is, so if I do this, then, how is this recognized at the university level? And that's part of Dr. Harshman's work right now, is to do that, see how it's recognized. But like Brady said, I think we have people interested in that either way, and there's a PD focus. I mean, that's something that would just help the delivery of our curriculum overall anyway, so.
Right, and I guess just because you do option 3 doesn't necessarily mean that if there's enough demand for elective, you wouldn't someday.
Sure. Well, I think it's, you look at what happens with upper elementary and say, here's some of the work that we did there at 7th grade level. Can we move that in 5th or 6th grade as well? To, start doing some of those, purposeful infusions at that.
I want to close by echoing Merv's. Thank you for just a great job today, and everybody who brought the recommendation forward. I think this is what we were looking for.
Yeah.
It's great to hear everybody's aligned to that. And thanks again for science, continued leadership and push, and for your involvement tonight. So it's been great.
And some of them are seniors, so I mean, if you may be a board member, it's just, I'll put a shout out. I mean, tremendously, impactful people this year, wonderful students. So, who are the seniors?
And Mary and I were
Right.
So have you recruited replacements for yourselves?
At least 3.
Then they need replacements.
Yeah. I mean, we're slowly passing the torch on.
Yeah, good.
We'll be, Saad will be good. He'll be fine.
And I personally believe that option 3 would partner very well with option 4, because I think that if more people got this
foundation late when they were younger, 12 to 13, then they would be enrolled in the option 4. But I also think that option 4 should be considered more as a long-term option. I don't think it would help anyone to the fullest extent now.
All right, we're going to move up. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to leave. I know you got things to do, so.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the third and final topic, at-risk services. We're going to put this pizza in for last.
All right. Would you like to? Okay, everybody, if you want to stand up and stretch, feel free. I know that you've been sitting for a while. We are taking what we thought maybe would be about 20 minutes. We're going to condense it into 10. We can do it. All right? So I'm Laura Daly. I'm the Director of Learning Supports, new in this role this year.
Diane Schumacher, Curriculum Director.
Kate Callahan, Director of Student Services.
And our goal today is to give you just a little overview of at-risk supports. We also have a couple people here to give us just a really quick overview of a few things. Joan Vandenberg is kind of in the back as well. She's been our at-risk coordinator in various positions over the years. This slide is just intended to give you an idea that funding as well as programming has changed and evolved since the 70s. And so a lot of you have heard a lot about the Safe Schools Healthy Students Grant, which was in 2008 to about 2013. That was a springboard for Pbis and a variety of other things. But this is going to at least give you a little bit of a decade by decade, and this is just a summary of some of the programs and services and opportunities that we have had. At-risk funding is based upon the MTSS structure. That means multi-tiered systems of supports. And so the Department of Ed for Iowa, as well as many other states, follows this model. You've also maybe heard it called RTI, Response to Intervention, and back in the day it was Instructional Decision Making, IDS. And so when you see this, universal tier supports, this triangle is divided into academic and social emotional behavioral for reasons to make sure that we have a strong system for academics as well as behavior. So tier 1 is instruction for all students. So when they were talking about standards, essential learnings, all of that, that is what we want all students to receive and be a part of, high quality tier 1 instruction. The same goes for social emotional behavioral supports. How are we teaching what we expect for student behavior? How are we teaching self-regulation for emotions, for example? So that's not what today's presentation is about. So we're gonna focus on the yellow and the red. So in tier 2, you'll notice that this is for some students. So for students who are below proficiency through a data analysis process and a system of meeting and using attendance, office referrals, and there are other at-risk indicators that teams within the school look at on a regular basis to determine and identify students that may be mildly or more seriously at risk. Then we need to have in place systems of support for academic interventions as well as social emotional or behavioral interventions. So when we think about this side of the triangle, it's largely positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS, that you've heard a lot about. At the tier 3 level, these are more individual based. So we try to implement our tier 2 supports in small groups. We can't individually intervention. We don't have time for that. So these need to be designed with high efficiency, rapid response, and again, typically in small groups where these are more individual based. And so that is a little bit of an overview of just the system in general. I talked about tier 1, and so Diane is going to give a little overview of tier 2 and 3 academic support.
Sure, so if you think about the left-hand side of that triangle, that's really talking about the academic arena. So when kids are struggling with learning our core curriculum, we have a lot of different ways that we can support them. District-wide, we have things like our extended learning programs, our ELL services, special education. You know about all of those programs. We also have opportunities to maybe pull kids out of the classroom and work with them in small groups. That's provided by like our Title I teachers or our academic support teachers or reading corps tutors. We have the extended day and summer school program to provide some additional supports. At the secondary, that tends to look more like courses that the kids might be identified as needing. So maybe a reading strategies course or a reading course at the junior high level, math lab, success center. So we have a lot of different options for kids who are struggling to get them into the right kinds of programming. Kate, did you want to say anything about online credit?
No, I would say that we're expanding online learning in all of the high schools next year. We're also expanding IJAG into full implementation at West High and looking at further implementing into Liberty and possibly to the junior highs the following year. And then I'll waive my time for Douglas to answer.
So I think one of the really neat things, though, about MTSS when it was first brought to me was it isn't as a classroom teacher I always send my kids somewhere. So if you're struggling, I don't always have to send them somewhere to get help. I'm the first interventionist. I'm the person that needs to be providing that first for the students. So at the elementary, we have set aside intervention time. That the classroom teacher, we have that set in their schedule. That she or he has 20 minutes of math intervention time, 20 minutes of reading intervention time, that they are providing interventions. At the high school level, we have Doug Lucina here to talk about how that works in one of our buildings at City High School, that intervention time.
Next slide there. We have Little Hawk Advisory. So we say it is a gift to students. It allows them 26 minutes of time, 4 days a week, all Thursday, to meet with their teachers. And it can either come from a teacher request that the student comes to see them, or it can be a student request that they go see the teacher. After our 5th period, they're able to pass to that other teacher and get about 20 minutes or a little bit more of time to work on homework. We have reteaching, so the teacher can reintroduce or reteach the lesson. Homework help, they have homework that they just need a little bit of assistance on, or they can, a lot of people use it as make-up work time if they need to make up a quiz or a test or work on some other piece of work. We have about 6,000 passes a year are given to students, so we have a number of students moving around. Where we've really seen an impact is our students who are in that 2.6 to 2.8 range have really ramped it up. We went from having about 750 students on our roll to bumping that. We're probably going to be close to 1,100 or 1,150 this time, and that is really taken a huge step. Yeah. For our lower students, we're working on them. That we haven't seen as much of a bump as we want, but we have put together tutoring tables, and so students can come during advisory and get tutoring from peers. We've also set up a tutoring system that's more one-on-one. A teacher says, hey, this kid's struggling in algebra. Can you get me an algebra tutor? I get an algebra tutor. They meet during advisory 3-4 days a week and get them help as well. And we have seen some improvements. About 80% of the kids that use advisory regularly, we know, have had a bump in their grade point, cumulative grade point.
That's great.
So I will give a very quick overview of PBIS, which Tammy Beener was here a little earlier, and she could have done it she's our trainer from Grantwood AEA, really to implement PBIS. It takes a big partnership with our AEA because they provide the training, and we're really increasing our technical assistance. But again, going with that green, that's the tier 1, and that's defining the school-wide behaviors, teaching and modeling, monitoring, having an appropriate consequence system, and using data for decision making. That goes back to using those at-risk indicators to determine most kids, again, 80-ish%, this process that all buildings are implemented should work for them, it should suffice. But for the kids then who may have behavioral errors or need additional instruction in order to provide a replacement behavior, then we have targeted interventions in tier 2. I feel like a weather person when I'm doing this. We've got these targeted interventions here. And in tier 3, again, it's more individual based. And so we have really ramped up this year our level of training at buildings and just tried to provide some of that support. Again, the AEA has been really helpful and increased their amount of time that they're in buildings to help the teams. And so in a very quick format, those are the different tiers of supports that we have right now. Other tier 2 social, emotional, behavioral supports in addition to the MTSS system through PBIS, we highlighted those on the other slide, but of course we continue small group counseling, mental health services, health plans, homeless supports, school-based health clinic, circle groups, the elementary level. In addition to that, we have Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Buddies, and then these are some of the supports that we have at the secondary level. And Kate, I think, was going to introduce.
Well, one of the questions that the board members have had is there support that's provided for students that are suspended from school? And the answer to that is yes. We do have supports provided through the SACs, which are student advisory centers, to help kids stay up with their academics. And we also have a district suspension program, so if the student may be suspended for 3 days or longer, that's housed at TREC. And again, we work closely with the teachers to make sure students are completing their work so they're not falling behind. The other question is, do we provide support for students when they're ill for extended periods of time? And the answer is yes. Students and families would have to meet certain criteria from their doctor. And if that's the case, then we would provide a teacher to come out to the home and work closely with the teachers at the school to help students stay up on their academics. So we cover that. And also, I'd like to introduce to you Austin Mulligan, who is the student advisory coordinator at Southeast, and he'll be the of the program.
Yeah, I mean, based on time, I have a little canned response here, but I consider myself, I'm a bridge between students, teachers, and administrators. I go get the kids from class, try to have a conversation about skill building. I use the same word, teach you how to play the game of life. You know, how to get along. You don't have to like every teacher, but this is how you need to respond in that situation so that way your day can continue on. And I love to use the saying, you got about 86,000 seconds in your day. If you had 86,000 dollars in the bank and I stole 10, would you throw away the rest? Well, that situation just stole 10 seconds of your day. Let's not throw away the rest. Let's try to see how we can move forward. And so I think it's nice because I don't have the aura of principal, so I'm not quite as scary, even though sometimes kids are like, oh, Mr. Mulligan's here. You know, I'm able to have those dad conversations sometimes with kids and kind of work through things and then get them back into the classroom as fast as possible, whereas the administrators maybe aren't always available for that one-on-one conversation at any given time.
And so I would say that's more of an intervention rather than disciplinary stages.
Yeah, and I do check and check out a lot with kids too, just to kind of encourage their days, you know. So.
And we do have SACs that are integrated into all of our junior highs and high schools.
So Tier 3 supports, again, these are individualized, they're often function-based, and these are a variety of things that we have at the district level. Some of them also are Tier 2 supports, that's why you'll see some of the repetitions there. And currently we are awaiting from the Department of Ed the training through the MTSS Behavior Supports Process for Tier 3 supports. Doesn't mean we're not providing them, but yet the Tier 2 that you saw earlier, we actually just are now becoming trained in some of our buildings on the new version of Tier 2 supports. So that'll happen over the next year or two to get that in full implementation, and we're awaiting the Tier 3 training as well. So you have, I think, a handout of our dropout prevention funding. That's the pie chart that lists some of the various descriptors and programs and services and personnel that we have funded specifically through the dropout prevention. And then as we move forward, I know that was one of the questions, or what are your hopes for the future? We really need to continue to work on developing standards of practice when we talk about all those program services and personnel. What are their roles, responsibilities? How do we make sure that everyone's working together, but yet there is division between, let's say, for example, what an SFA is doing, a student and family advocate, and a counselor, for example, because we don't have the time or resources to duplicate services. So we're working on that. And also just then what are the systematic professional development supports that people need so that it's sustainable, it's built in, it isn't just one and done. How do new staff get trained? How do we get everybody up to speed with that? And a big thing that we're working on is program develop program evaluation. What are the outcomes that we're looking for, of course, and then how do we monitor that? What is relevant data to collect? Where and how? We've collected some things in a database before and different databases, but so we're trying to really clean that up and provide that to the building level. And so those are some of the things I think that will help with program evaluation. Anything the two of you would add to that?
I think you're good. I think our 10 minutes is up.
Done.
Thanks for the quick version. I know this is supposed to be educational for us, but is there anything you need from us tonight? I think it was mostly.
I think understanding that these things we've got some good things in place, and sometimes it takes time in a big district to just kind of revisit that and refresh it, but we're on it and we're working on it. So
Great.
just your ongoing support.
Great, thank you. And thanks for the results at Southeastern City Advisory. Those are some outstanding results, so good job. All right, last agenda item is agenda setting. You
Well, I
suggest?
have a couple of questions on this, if I could quick. Yeah, and I guess I did notice that Steve failed. I was curious what the lowest and the highest FTE salaries are for these positions. And if we could
Yeah, we could pull those up.
up.
Yep.
And also, there was a community member that has always been talking to me about the family advocate positions. Is there any thoughts of having them work in the summer before school to try and create those bonds for the families and that? And also, if that position were like a second shift, like after school, when the kids go home and are actually with their families? Because during the day, typically the families are at work, the kids are at school, and it's a way to get both together at the same time with those advocates.
I didn't know.
I think that the original, when student and family advocates were created several years ago, the intent was to provide some during the school day services, and many of our student and family advocates certainly do early morning and after school support for families, and it's more to connect them to community agencies and resources, not to necessarily, the current role is not to necessarily be the ones that are constantly in the homes, but to try to connect them with supports so that they can kind of increase their independence or increase their connectedness to other agencies. Joan, what would you add to that? Because you were around back.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think what happens now is a lot of them do work into the evening and do work in the morning and work in the summer. They just don't always get paid that way. Some of them, I mean, it's not always structured with a contract or something like that,
But there are a certain number of days.
And I think I'm really excited what's all happening in our district, because I think defining the roles of what they are would be very good, because we expect a lot. I mean, we kind of want them all day at school, but we also want them in the evening, and we want them in the summer. And so just kind of, how does that piece fit into everything else? It's systemic.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks, Donna. Agenda setting, two things. This is the last scheduled education meeting for the school year. I've asked Steve to propose a schedule for next year. And I just suggest we deal with this through the board agenda setting process. Unless there's further comments on that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
I know maybe you don't have